This conference will now be recorded.
It is Monday, June 23rd, 7:01 p.m. This Maine Conservation Commission will now convene. First up, we have bills. And right after that, we're going to have the minutes for June 9th.
There isn't any.
There isn't any.
Not yet.
Okay, under new business, we have stormwater utility, impervious area, minimum square footage.
That's part of the reason why there's no minutes. It's been stormwater crunch time. So the stormwater utility fee is measured at 1,000 square foot impervious area as a billing unit. And minimum of what counts as impervious area is 100 square feet. So if you have a shed or a doghouse or something smaller than that, it doesn't count. I am proposing to raise that to 300 square feet. And as you all are the stormwater authority, I just need a motion to pass that if you see fit. So I get a list of new construction from the assessor's office every year, and it's mostly decks and sheds that are only 100, 200 square feet big. And I have to enter all that manually in multiple places. So sometimes I feel like, is this really worth the time it takes me when it might not even affect the actual billing unit of a property? And also, the original person that mapped the whole town did a pretty poor job. And when I went back and remapped the whole town, I wasn't doing smaller decks and sheds. So it's another way to just be consistent. But if you have any thoughts, questions, concerns on any of that?
And I think part of it too is like you had touched on the manual entry of it. But like some of this manual entry doesn't even affect the billing unit. Yeah.
It rounds up at 500 square feet. So eventually, if someone continued to add a shed every year, it could change the billing unit. But I will, every 3-4 years, I'll probably do a full town review again. And so if there is large things, I could pick them up then.
So you said currently it's 100 square feet?
Yep.
10 by 10.
Yep.
Jeez.
Yep. I think it's pretty strict. I mean, what is your 10 by 10 shed is not, making any bad stormwater, most likely. Like, it's not, contributing any debris to the roadway, probably.
So question, why not bump the minimum billing unit up to 500 square feet? That way it would automatically round up. And then things that are even smaller than that, like your small shed or your small deck.
Then a lot of decks and sheds wouldn't count at all.
Wouldn't count. So I guess
which could be okay.
So, maybe it could also be incremental as well, like the 300 square feet, and then in a year, if you find that.
And I do use my best judgment a lot of times. It's like, oh, that's so close, I'll give it to him now, or no, that counts. Like it's hard. It's a hard judgment call a lot of times too.
Have you calculated the impact to the utility? Not that I'm trying
if that would happen?
Yeah. I would hate to get to a point where such a change would suddenly make it a deficit. Not that I'm trying to make a profit, but I would hate to do this and suddenly we're coming up short on that account.
So the thing is, no, again, it's mostly new construction. So the 20 new sheds every year, I wouldn't think break the bank or add that much to the bank.
Okay.
Yeah, because again, like that's mostly all it is. If you add a 200 square foot deck or something, obviously if you all new houses, all that, all bigger stuff, of course, counts.
Do you know what the financial implications are?
Well, that's what.
Right. Yeah, sure. I mean, I can come back next meeting with a better example of like, this is the new construction list that I usually get, and this is what the cost difference would be. I could try to do some rough math.
Are we up against the fiscal year deadline on this?
No, absolutely. It doesn't matter. It's just,
okay.
Nope, the unit price isn't changing this year. Nothing's, no time pressure at all, if you want to
Okay.
think about it. Yeah.
I feel like it would be more internal, like internal procedural.
Yeah, it's
With this
just, I'm the
square
only one that,
footage?
yeah, takes the time to do all this. And I already did it for this fiscal year, so I won't do it again until May. So we have until next May, really.
I do remember when I first started as stormwater coordinator, I got an abatement request for an individual who had gotten a smaller shed. And I had taken the square footage measurements, and there was no change in his bill, because we're talking maybe a
Usually
reduction in maybe, if anything, 100 square feet. But
It usually doesn't actually impact the way it rounds, I would say.
yeah,
But if, yeah,
and this also doesn't affect our local stormwater regulations either. It's more, I think, a time saver, because again, trying to quantify these very small pieces of impervious area that don't actually impact the bill wastes more of her time. So if anything, that would be the kicker on the Stormwater Enterprise Fund, is her wasting her time measuring this 100 square foot new shed when it's not going to affect the property's overall stormwater billing unit or bill per se. But we can attempt to try to quantify that for the next meeting.
Yep.
So just something to ruminate
Think about.
on. But as Steph said, and she said it perfectly, you guys are the stormwater authority, so any like internal procedural change on that would
Yep.
have to have your guys' approval and blessing.
Are we ready to make a motion on this now, or do you want to need another? wait till we
That's
come back
for
with more
you guys
information?
to decide whether you want to put it off or you feel you've got enough information to act on it tonight. That's entirely up to you.
$300 square feet sounds good to me.
I thought it was fair. I kind of cut it, went in the middle between 100 and 500.
Yeah, I just did a quick calculation on my big shed. It's a little under 200 square feet, so.
Yeah. And that's the majority, I would, or, yeah.
12 by 16, so, I mean, a 300 square foot building is not a small building. It would be a very small house, which is, I guess, I think there is a, what do I want to call it, a bylaw on tiny houses now, or small houses.
Affordable dwelling units.
Yes, I think that's, 600 square feet is allowed, something like that.
Can't quite.
So I think something like
No.
half of that would make sense to me. So 300 square feet sounds okay to me.
I'm not quite sure about the square footage for an accessory dwelling unit, but I do know that I think this is Belchertown. Maybe I'm thinking of Palmer, so I may be wrong. But I think anything over 200 square feet requires a building permit
Oh, in this town?
in this town.
I think
Maybe
it's
I'm wrong.
anything more than,
About anything.
anything more than 10 by
No, yeah,
10.
because I get decks that are 100
So
square
they-
feet.
Oh,
on my
okay.
list.
So
They
I'm
won't charge you for
confusing
like a
my
little
towns.
plastic, one of these little plastic jobs that you buy down at the big box store, but
Mm.
you make something bigger than a 10 by 10. I think that's when Paul wants you to pull a building permit.
Right. So is that a motion, Steve?
Yeah, I make a motion that we increase the square footage, minimum impervious area square footage to 300 square feet for stormwater utility.
Second.
Okay, we have motion second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Next up, we have OSRP Extension.
Yes, so, division of, well, the branch of our federal government, I believe it's still Division of Conservation Services, that handles open space and recreation plans, has changed how OSRP, changed the life of OSRPs. So now your OSRP, instead of it being a 10-year plan, instead of it being a 10-year plan, it's now a 7-year plan. No, crap, I did that wrong. Instead of it being a 7-year plan, it is now a 10-year plan. So instead of us having to renew our open space and rec plan every 7 years, we can do it every 10 years. For those of us that recently wrote and revised, updated our OSRPs, we are eligible for a 3-year extension to take our 7-year plan and make it a 10-year plan. So that would take us from the OSRP expiring in 2028 to expiring in 2021, and the guidance 2021. 2031.
2031?
Yeah, sorry, my brain doesn't work well with numbers. But the guidance that I had gotten recently was to bring this in front of the commission and have it be an official motion or an official discussion and a motion whether or not to request the formal 3-year extension from the state. And it wouldn't consist of anything, like it wouldn't consist of a whole plan rewrite. It would just consist of the section, I believe it's section 7, or the section that is the actual 7-year action plan, and revising that action plan literally from 7 years to 10 years. And in the plan, there is, in the table, there is a column for years of implementation. When do you anticipate implementing these action items associated with these goals? So it would just also include revising that time frame. And for me, in the way that I wrote the 7-year action plan was I wrote the time frame for completing these action items from 2021 to 2028, ongoing, so that, you know, we can accomplish these action items as they happen, like organically, rather than being like held to this arbitrary time frame of, oh, we need to do X by 2026. So again, I put this as an agenda item for discussion, and if the commission feels so moved, you folks could motion to approve me applying for a 3-year extension, and I would just, again, make very small tweaks to the plan and send that back off to Melissa Cryan at the state, and we would get the approval for the 3-year extension. And then after that, it would be every 10 years we would renew the plan.
Do we take a lead? Do we take the lead on this plan?
Yes.
So I assume that the planning board or Doug provides input to this?
So I took over the finalization of the open space and rec plan update when I took over as conservation administrator. There was lots of public input prior to that. One of the required letters of support that we're required to have is from planning board. So I don't foresee any of the other powers that be or folks that have provided us with letters of recommendation and support would have any issue with it. We work with Pioneer Valley Planning Commission during the OSRP update process, and it was actually PVPC that has been working with Melissa Cryan to extend the life of these OSRPs. So I know from their perspective, a 10-year renewal process benefits them as well. So again, there's no public education or outreach required at this point in time. If you folks do approve a 3-year extension and make it a 10-year plan, we'll do more outreach and engagement when we're going for the next update. But I don't see any reason why anybody in the town, rec, planning, Steve, would have any issue with going for this 3-year extension.
Okay, so when does the existing plan expire?
It expires in 2028, and I just finalized the update last year.
Oh,
Yeah, so I would have to rewrite it, update the applicable sections in another 3 years. This would give me a 6-year window.
right, yeah. All right.
Why wouldn't we do this?
I mean, that's a great question. As I said, when I was at my Mass Society of Municipal Conservation Professionals annual meeting, I took a workshop on the OSRP, the new OSRP workbook. That aside, it was recommended that we make it an agenda item and get an official motion from the commission.
Yeah, I mean, I understand, things change.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, I guess there weren't any pickleball courts
Right.
many years.
And there's some sections of the OSRP that don't change.
Yeah,
Like your regional context. Some bits of that change. Like there's parts of it that do
History.
change
Yeah.
from update to update.
Yeah.
But there's parts of it that don't
Yeah.
because, it's not like the soils or the geology has changed in the last 7 years. So it's more about, when the plan update comes around, doing that that outreach and engagement about new action items, new objectives, stuff like that.
okay.
But I feel like our 7-year action plan, which would be converted into a 10-year action plan, I feel like all that information is still valid. It's just changing some numbers. 7 to 10.
Are there any other ongoing planning that could be useful to inform a revision that would happen sooner?
I don't think that's necessary. I think it's just procedural, just
Okay.
changing some numbers.
Well then, we're looking for a motion.
Indeed.
I'd like to make a motion that we apply for a 3-year extension to the OSRP plan.
I'll second that.
Here we have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Next up, I'm thinking you want me to sign into the year built.
So this will also require a motion. Because of the accountant's schedule for the end of the year, as far as end of year mileage after this meeting, any potential payables that may come up, because we are not meeting again for we're not meeting until July 14th, but the accountant's deadlines are before that. So I'd reached out to Jill to see if the commission could vote to authorize the chair to sign any payables that would have occurred between this meeting and their deadlines upstairs, which I believe, and I have the whole memo on my wall, I think and I may have messed the dates up, but I think the last day for upstairs to get any bills or payables is July 9th. So for example, for mileage, after tonight, any miles that we accrue on inspections, without having a commission meeting, we can't get those mileages paid without a vote from the commission to authorize the chair to sign the miles or any other payables himself. And again, that was Jill's recommendation. And it's happened to us
Every year.
because our meeting schedule doesn't align with the accountant's schedule, and so we end up losing out. You know, it's not like it's hundreds of miles, but we still end up losing out on some mileage. Well, I mean, I guess technically I could pay those miles out of wetlands, but Stephanie would lose out on mileage as soon as the beginning of the fiscal year. So the recommendation, again, from the town accountant was for the commission to vote to authorize the chair to sign any payables.
Well, is this, let me ask you a question. Is this a permanent change or is this a temporary change?
That's a great question, and that just clicked in my head. And I would,
Might
she
be up
says
to you guys.
This would
they
be-
could vote that as an ongoing solution,
Yeah.
so they wouldn't all slash quorum would have to be needed to sign each week. We could vote to make it temporary through the end of the
I'm just
fiscal
asking
year.
the question,
Probably up
that's
to
all,
you.
Sarah.
Oh, yeah,
I'm just-
no, I think it could go
I
either
don't
way.
think I don't think Ed is likely to go into cahoots with the administrator over mileage. But I know that consistently we've looked at the bills. I really, occasionally there's like a misspelling or something.
A typo, that's me.
Yeah. But, I mean, it's okay with me, I guess is what I'm saying. How do you feel about it, Ed?
I'm fine with it. I've signed for stuff in the past before.
Oh, okay.
There have been times when in this case, when the administrator was not on the job and the assistant, in this case Sarah, was needing stuff signed for payroll, and I was having to sign it. I had to do that on a weekly basis.
Mhm. Where are you in the world, Ed?
Huh? Yeah.
It was, where are you in the world? I'll come
Where-
find
where-
you.
Yeah. So, I mean, this is not the first time. I would think primarily this will be just once end of the year thing between now and the end of the month. Although I may not sign it until shortly after the, into the new year, but still that, I think this is just to close out the fiscal year.
Well, can I make the motion that Ed have the authority to sign the payables unless he feels that he needs the commission to approve it, and then otherwise it will come before the commission? Is that a
Yep.
reasonable way to frame that, Ed?
That's fine.
Here forward.
I would just modify it one little bit.
Okay.
I would make it myself or the vice chair.
Oh, and that is David?
That is David presently.
Okay, great.
Just in case I'm not available. then,
No, I get it.
We
Yeah.
still got it covered.
And so that motion would be for, you mentioned it could be at the end of the year, like we are at now, but that could also be the way that was described. That could be in the middle of the year, which I think I'm okay with that
There could be a
too.
situation where we suddenly aren't meeting for a month because
Yeah.
we have to cancel a meeting or two in a row because of whatever.
Weather, whatever.
Sounds like-
Weather, restrictions, who knows?
Sounds like good government efficiency to me.
Right? And it's not the fallback for sure. It's just, end of the year, or there's no quorum and there are bills that need to go out. I mean, mileage probably isn't the biggest one on that, but like if we have peer review or engineering bills and,
yeah.
if it goes I mean, typically our engineers are pretty good and they won't hit us with a late fee, but you know, it's something
Could put a
maybe
cap on
like
it.
that. So it's
I'm sorry?
not like an
Could put
every
a cap on it.
meeting kind of thing.
For sure, in my position, I would try to make sure it's the more routine, mundane things rather than,
Yeah,
Oh, me.
Ty and Bond just hit us for a bill for $4,000 for engineering review. I mean, I would think that's, something of that nature. I would want to get that in front of the commission.
Indeed.
so how are you going to structure this motion?
EK or vice chair signs unless feels need to come before BCC. Those were your words with Ed's revision.
That's what I'm moving.
That's my shorthand, but cool. Awesome.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next up, we have enforcement at 22 Clearbrook.
Okay. I got called out for a violation. You guys can pass this around. This is the enforcement notice that I sent to this gentleman with just some photos. He happened to be on site. He let me onto the property. So I was able to take some photos. My apologies for not having better documentation or maps or whatever. Essentially, I gave the property owner a verbal cease and desist. There is Bachelor Brook, there are bordering vegetative wetlands, and then the topography increases and goes up to his lawn area around his house. He had cut down BVW. He was trying to clean the forest. This gentleman also, English is his second language. There's I don't exactly know what country he hails from, but there's a very different ethic about, lots of people want to clean the forest, So I gave him a verbal cease and desist. There was no sort of like BVW fill or anything like that. If that was the case, I would have taken formal enforcement. But I had spoken with Ed about it, and that, informal enforcement may be the better route. Again, he had just cut down BVW, all the trees were still extant. It was very obvious that there was a robust seed stock that was going to rebound with wetland vegetation. And again, part of my cease and desist was, pointing out to him the very obvious change in topography from his lawn area up here by his house to the drop down to the BVW to the brook. And I just told him to let it grow back. I told him that I was going to be sending him a letter. I have not heard back from him yet. If I need to resend the letter, I will. So I feel like it's one of those situations where, I like hear Dave Haynes in my head where it's like maximum achievable compliance, but also, working with people. There's a value to that, because if I were to take formal enforcement, we'd be dragging this out for years, whereas letting the area grow back is, I feel like a valid point of enforcement. I mean, he does not know about the Wetlands Protection Act, or he did not, and so I explained it to him.
May I ask a couple of questions?
Sure.
So basically what he's done is he's cleared his property up to the brook. Is that what the problem is?
He cleared the understory BVW.
Right, okay, but did he do any fill?
No, no fill.
No earth?
No earth removal, no nothing. He just cut down the understory BVW because he thought he was clearing the forest.
Right, okay. And are you going to are you suggesting that he put in some kind of boundary markers to indicate where he's got to let it naturally grow back and then where he can cut and improve up to?
I had not had that thought. And I figured, the letter would be an opportunity for us to speak more.
I'm not talking about like chunks of granite, but I mean just some
Yeah.
kind of marker so that he knows this side I can maintain, the other side I gotta leave it.
It might be just as simple as putting 2 or 3 tomato stakes in the ground.
Yeah, and again, I did try to explain to him, again, like, here's your lawn, here's the change of topography. As soon as your lawn drops off, this is where the wetlands are. You cannot touch that. You need to let that grow back. And he was very nice. I mean, he saw me taking photos. He didn't have to allow me onto his property. I let him know who I was. He showed me a video of a little black bear wandering through his property. He was super pumped on that. So, I took it as a learning opportunity.
How
So
did you know this was happening?
it was called in to me. I had just gotten back from vacation, and one of the voicemails that I had was that this activity had occurred. So I went down, and I didn't expect anybody to be home, so I was just on the roadway snapping some photos, and he invited me onto the property, and that's when I explained to him, like, this is a wetland, and he was like, this is very wet. And I, part of his thinking was cutting the vegetation would help dry the area out. And I explained to him that it's actually the opposite. And so, I mean, this is where I'm at right now as far as this. I sent him the letter. I can follow up with an inspection and a subsequent letter, maybe get, the same letter, just new date, and resend it to him. Again, if there was BVW fill or actual, like,
Modification.
resource area alteration
Yeah.
outside of cutting of vegetation, I would take more serious means. But again, when you have an area that it's just like, hey, you can't do anything down here. Here's your lawn, here's the woods,
Well, let me ask
Leave
you
them
this
be.
question.
or
So
leave this be.
can he have a path down to the stream and have like a chair or a,
Yeah.
I would, that could be, communicated orally. It doesn't have to be in writing necessarily, but hey, this doesn't mean you don't ever have to go down to the stream. Just, let the natural vegetation come in, and if you want to path down there, you walk your dog down there, whatever, and,
Yeah.
and you want to sit down there and watch the stream. I do this all the time.
Right.
So anyway,
Yeah, no, that's great. And maybe I didn't think about that during that day because I didn't anticipate him being home and inviting me onto the property. Normally I'm like, again, just taking pictures from the roadway. But of course he can walk down to the stream and
enjoy the ambiance.
Exactly. That's the reason why we have these properties to begin with. So yeah, I figured informal enforcement, and it was actually a great opportunity to be able to speak with him. So
Yeah.
I feel like I do have to follow up and, check and make sure that things are growing back. It's just been a busy couple of weeks.
Oh, it'll grow back.
Oh, it will. It was already rebounding. And a lot of it was poison ivy too, which sucked. But I had my knee-high wetland boots on.
So is there anything here that requires a motion or just a mention in the minutes? that we
Just
discussed it?
Just a mention in the
At
minutes.
this point, it sounds like it's just a discussion item.
Yep. This is my informal standard letter that I send to people. Everybody gets this letter with just the caveats of what type of resource area it is and what exactly I'm asking you to do. So,
Can I mention now that we've all looked at the bills?
yes.
Yep.
I make a motion that we pay the bills.
Second,
Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The bills are paid. Next up, we have request for extension on Lake Arcadia.
So
Thought we agreed to do this.
we did. So this is, rather it being a 1-year extension, it's going to be a 2-year extension. Simply because the permits for the other 2 lakes have been administratively extended to 2027. So at least by giving Lake Arcadia a 2-year extension, that will mean that the orders of conditions for all 3 lakes will expire in the same year,
Which will be,
2027. Metacom and Holland were administratively extended to 2027 because of the COVID extension and the recent Permit Extension Act that took effect in either November or December of last year.
So is this a change in paperwork? Because I was pretty sure that's what we voted was to get them in sync.
We didn't vote yet. It was just a
We didn't
discussion.
vote
Oh, we
yet.
hadn't voted yet.
No, it was just a discussion to make sure that you guys were okay with that.
So we must have continued because you needed to check on something.
Yep.
Because I know that was the discussion and that was
Yeah,
the
we didn't have that
intent.
form ready or anything.
Yeah, I didn't
It
have
was
the
just to
form
make
ready.
Sure. Yeah.
Exactly. It was just to make sure that the commission would be okay with this because the other 2 permits didn't need to be extended. They're already administratively extended to 2027.
so we do need to make a motion on this.
Correct.
Yes.
I move that we extend the Lake Acadia Vegetation Management, I guess it's a plan,
Yep.
2 years to 2027.
Okay, we have a motion.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously.
So now all 3 lakes are in sync?
They're not all gonna expire on the same date in 2027,
Yeah,
but they
same
will
year.
all expire in the same year.
Year.
Yep.
So when they refile, they'll be filing all 3 at the same time.
Yep.
So is it the same lake association that handles all 3? Yeah, okay.
We're actually going to be filing the NOIs under our local lakes committee. The applicant will not be the Tri-Lakes
Oh,
Association.
it won't be.
The applicant is going to be the Belchertown Lakes Committee. Eventually, Steve is going to write a charge to have them also fall under the Conservation Department. I've already started working on the permit for Lake Holland, and that was before I realized it was administratively extended till 2027. So I will be rewriting new NOIs for all 3 lakes.
So does that mean that would be a subcommittee of the Concom?
I don't think so.
Or does
I-
that mean we're taking over the duties?
No, the Lakes Committee, I've already talked with Steve about it. The Lakes Committee, it wouldn't be a subcommittee. It's a standalone committee under the Conservation Department.
Well, if it's under
That's a
us, it would be almost like a subcommittee.
Well, so
Because
that's
they
the
would be coming
difference.
to us for their,
Well, that's the difference between the Conservation Department and the Conservation Commission. The Conservation Department holds stormwater. The
Right.
Conservation Commission is under the Conservation Department.
I would reverse that.
Yeah, I don't.
No,
it
the
wouldn't-
department's under the commission.
I would say the commission's under
You're
the
not my
department.
boss.
Well, I mean, then why, so on the town
Otherwise, you'd be
website,
signing all this stuff and not me.
oh God, I mean, I signed half of it, but that's okay. I haven't talked with Steve about that for a minute, but he was okay with having, I guess they would maybe be a subcommittee. I guess that's a fair point.
Yeah, I wouldn't feel comfortable having the authority of
Oh, it's
Oh, is that what that was?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
me
Passing.
trying to fix it, sorry.
Because we approve the NOIs.
Yeah,
I mean, us approving an NOI that we produced is not a good.
Well, we have done that.
Oh, have you?
There is precedent.
Okay.
yeah, I can write the NOIs, but I guess, yeah, that's a fair point. Let me
Sounds
check in
conflict
on
of
that.
interest-y.
But when I talked with Steve about it like 6-8 months ago, he was totally cool with having the Lakes Committee fall under the Conservation Department in some
Yeah, I mean,
capacity.
I'm okay with, a separate entity producing an NOI. I don't think that it's appropriate for the commission to actually produce the NOI that then it's going to approve. That just doesn't make.
So, but we wouldn't, if the subcommittee brings it in front of
Yeah,
us
right.
for us to approve,
Yeah, yeah.
that's fine.
Yeah.
I don't see an issue there.
I mean, I write the permits for you guys to approve, so, well, I guess, yeah. No, I'll check with Steve on that again. I mean, all the information is honestly the same. Nothing has really changed since 2008 about the herbicides and everything. It's just reformatting it and making it look pretty. So, but I'll
Freshening
double,
up the data and
exactly. And we have some new vegetation survey information and stuff like that. So, but I'll double check with Steve on that.
okay. Where do we stand on our COCs? I forget why we put them off.
I wasn't able to do an inspection. So I did the inspection. Well, these forms say 6/9, so that's not necessarily accurate, but that is, I did the
Oh, it was
inspection.
two, so then it was the 11th.
Yeah, I did the inspections at Culpeper, for all 3 open orders on June 11th, and I saw absolutely no evidence of any sort of wetlands violations. Everything was in compliance. It was, as far as like a commercial / industrial site.
Yeah, but
It was
no, I
one
don't
of
think
the-
that was the issue. I think we
Yeah.
had that report before.
No, the issue was that I hadn't done the inspections. I wasn't able to do the inspections. And my argument was like, well, most of, like, one of these is, from before when I was born, so why not just issue? So I did the inspections, and yeah.
I know, I remember what it was, is that first one, we didn't even know what the order was, what work went with.
I have the
Or we didn't
orders
get the
for
So,
all.
and at the
request.
time, you said you didn't even know where the NOI was.
Oh, well, okay, so there was
I
that.
think that was the
And
issue,
then-
is we didn't even know what work was proposed under that first one.
So I did get the formal requests like the next day.
Yeah, after the agenda.
And I did look through the files. Again, I was on site. I haven't seen like a cleaner industrial site in my time. And I was also on site that day too to review the area of invasive species removal for the new permit.
Right.
And so it's going to happen all along the right side of the access road going into the site. So it was a double whammy of going through the site, checking out all of the expansions or all of the previous permits. One was an expansion onto the existing office building, and I believe 2 of them were for additional roofs over their treatment areas. So,
On the drawing pads, okay.
yeah, so I see no reason to not issue certificates of compliance for all 3 of these.
Does that require a motion?
What's that?
Does that require a motion?
It does.
Oh, absolutely.
Does it require 3 or just 1?
It could be done as all in one. If you are comfortable with all 3, or if you still want to pick one apart, you can do 2. Hold one out, whatever the wishes of the commission are.
But these have already been discussed at a prior commission meeting,
Well,
so right?
so if you look here, if you look at your agenda, if you've got it in front of you,
Yeah,
10491 is a very, very early one. That predates me by a number of years. I would say that one could go back to the late 80s, early 90s. The other two, I was probably here for both of them, but not that first one for sure.
I wasn't born yet.
So that one, that first one could be as old as 88, 89.
85.
It's 85, okay.
Yep.
And the second one, do we know the date on that one?
Second one is 93. The third one was 96.
So actually, I wasn't here for any of them.
They're all older than
I wasn't on
and
the
we're
commission.
cleaning these up now because we've just issued the other one for the culvert.
Correct.
All right, I move that we approve the certificates of compliance for, should I give all the DEP numbers?
Yeah.
104-91, 104-365, and 104-465. Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to certify all three. 94, 0365, and 0465. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Next up, we have emergency cert for 258 Allen.
I was on vacation during this, so Stephanie kind of handled it for me. It was a emergency tree removal. The trees have been removed. So there's just a motion to ratify.
So what was the nature of the emergency?
I don't know, I was on vacation.
I know, so Stephanie.
Overhanging the shed and house.
Yeah.
3 maples overhanging the shed and house. 1 maple and 1 spruce along the driveway, overhanging the house and the driveway.
Okay, so we've had this discussion before, and I'm not pointing this at you specifically.
Wasn't
So
me.
we've had this discussion before. Where was the emergency?
That's what I said.
That either David and I couldn't have been called. I mean, I get it, you have time limits, I get that. But in this case, you know, if you'd run it by one of us and we had been here, you know, we certainly, one of us would like to be in
Diseased and decaying trees threatening the house and residents and cars.
so, but my point is, and David's would be too, is they weren't diseased yesterday, but they were diseased today.
Mhm. Just because the tree guy said they need to come down on Wednesday doesn't mean it's true.
That's right.
I
So,
agree.
I mean, I get it, you guys are in a spot, but, you know, in cases like this, I mean, if neither one of us are around, you gotta do what you gotta do. I get that.
And I wasn't
But
around.
but most of the time, one of us is around, if not both of us. And if, you know, we would like to maybe go talk to these people and or drive out and see it ourselves. And we can, you know, at least be aware of what's going on.
Yeah. I mean, for something like this, I'd rather, I mean, what's the point of doing an RDA? Like, what?
Well,
So we
yeah,
can make no
but we
money
still-
off of it,
but you
put it
see,
on a hearing
here's the
and have
problem.
sit here
Here's
for a half
somewhere
hour,
from
45 minutes
Anybody
discussing
can
it.
declare an emergency, they gotta do it and totally bypass the process.
See it on the-
And there's not a thing. I would tell you it's an emergency, I have to go do this right now, because I don't feel like going through the process of scheduling it and doing 2 weeks waiting and maybe a newspaper thing.
Yeah.
You know, If nothing else, just David and I being involved might say, hey, we're not total hicks around here. We actually are, we're smarter than that. I just don't like the idea because otherwise anybody can declare anything an emergency and get carte blanche to get it done right then and there simply because they declared it so. And I'm not in favor of that. And I'm not trying to put that burden on you. That's why I said, call David and I, and we might make the call on that. In which case, if we screw up, it's going to be on us, not you. But
Would the decision have been any different? Would the decision on this one be any different?
I don't know. But we might go to them and say, well, you can cut this one and this one, but these you're going to apply for. We might do that.
Yep, fair enough.
There is a certain amount of liability that, if somebody declares an emergency, there is a certain amount of liability. If they don't immediately give that approval and something happens, then yes, there is a liability that goes with that. But to me, this is just is a way to circumvent the system and get a blank check to do whatever they want without any review. Which is, the way David and I have viewed this for years. But in any case, what has happened here is they have issued the authorization, just so you guys know, they need us to make a motion to ratify it. Which I am in no way suggesting we withhold that. That is not my discussion here. I'm just talking about general policy here, not the instant case. We have to ratify that.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we're leaving them to hang out to dry.
Of course, the emergency cert comes in when I'm on vacation and you have 24 hours to issue and
Yeah,
she's.
but is that work days or days? Because it came in on a Friday.
That's a great question.
Yeah, because
You
I was
know what?
thinking you
I
could
would say
look at
if
it
you
on
brought
Monday.
Anything less
everything
than
else
10
work
is-
days, I would think you could have held it till Monday.
You
That's
could
what I
have,
was thinking.
but
But in any case, and Stephanie, I'm not blaming you for this.
No, it was
No,
it was a Friday afternoon. I
get
had
that,
no
a Friday
time. I thought
afternoon.
it'd be okay till Monday. Yeah.
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 But, all I ask from either one of you is just give us a call.
Yeah,
Definitely.
And we might, David and I have keys to the office. If we think there's a problem, we can have you just leave the paperwork out. We'll walk in and sign it and do what needs to be done. If we so choose, or we may say, no, we're both out of town, just do what you gotta do. We get that.
yeah, I'd like to jump in and just say, yes, sometimes you get faced with these things and the decision's got to be made. You made the
But,
decision.
sometimes if one or both of us
You
are
made the
local.
decision. I think, you made the best decision you could with the information you had at the time. So,
But-
all good.
But no, I know, but I'm just saying, if, one of us is here and it's gonna take us
Yep.
an hour to get out and see it, well, give us that hour to go out and review it.
And that's
Maybe
fine.
have a discussion with the,
But my point is
Homeowner.
that that's just a matter of business. This is going to come up sometime. So you pick up and we move on.
yeah, I'm
Not a
pretty
big deal.
sure the request came in on 5:30 and this wasn't even issued until 6:3.
Yeah, it was issued on Monday anyway.
6:3 is
Yeah.
a
'Cause
Tuesday
again,
So we need
Because
a
again,
maybe-
it
How
was
about
Friday.
I
Motion.
move
to
that
ratify.
we ratify the emergency certificates for 258 Allen Street tree removal.
Perfect.
actually, there is the plural or one?
No, to
So-
ratify.
Tree removal.
So,
Tree removal.
okay, so
You're not saying a tree.
well, no, but it says certificates plural. That's why I'm asking.
Oh, well, no, that's, emergency certificates in case we have multiple of them.
yeah.
Right.
Okay,
Okay, so we have a motion.
and I second it.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
All right.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously.
At some point, we should have a discussion about tree removal because, I've heard this 2 or 3 times.
Mhm.
So, I don't know. I have my own opinion about it, which I don't want to express at this point. But it really is gotten under Ed's skin. So, and, you know, again, this is more than once. So I think we need to have a discussion, maybe not on a hot evening.
So
I'm not that
if
hot.
you
I mean, I'm
guys, so if you guys remember when we were looking through the wetlands filing fee schedule, how that includes an administrative approval process that covers tree removals. That there's a whole separate form, we reviewed that, where it's like you can take down up to, I think it says 4 trees without going through an RDA process per se. So we've kind of talked about that already.
Well,
So
I mean,
that would subvert a emergency cert process. I guess it would kind of function, it would function almost in a similar manner, but there wouldn't be a 24-hour window. And I don't know that there is actually a mechanism for denying an emergency cert. Like, I do not believe there is a mechanism for that in the regulations, but under this administrative approval process that is part of our wetlands fee schedule that we will be, like our local fee schedule that we will be adopting, that covers like general inquiries, tree removals, and a couple other things. And I'm almost ready to bring those regulations, that update in full in front of the commission. So that would be a way to get away from the emergency
you just
cert.
gave me an idea.
Oh, God.
Oh. So, doing an emergency cert requires time and effort and paperwork on your part, your collective efforts. Can we charge for that?
Yeah, we have an emergency cert, under our local bylaw, part of the fee schedule includes emergency certs. But if by, like, under this administrative approval process, if that covers tree removals, then that takes tree removals out of the emergency cert range or realm, unless it's like a super, super, super emergency.
So why can't we, under our fee schedule, whatever the RDA schedule is, the fee schedule is for an RDA, double it for an emergency cert, but give us the latitude to waive it if it's a legit, appealable to the full board.
Like, we already finalized the fee schedule like months ago, so I don't want to.
Change it again.
I don't want to go back and do that. I'm so
I'm
close.
sorry.
I'm so close to getting these regulations done, and I've been working on them for like a year and a half. So we can have that discussion when I bring them in front of the board.
Well, okay, but I mean, it would seem to me that would be a real simple change. And that would, you know, a true emergency, we could deal with, and if it's a true emergency, we could waive the fee.
Well,
But if it's,
I'm not trying to say that like emergency tree removals aren't like actual, like big time emergencies wouldn't qualify under an emergency cert, but under this administrative approval process, it does cover tree removals and it allows for more time, and any one of us can go out and inspect. It's not like we have to issue within 24 hours.
yes, but there will still be people trying to come in for emergencies.
Well, yes, but that's for your emergency cert, like, oh, my culvert on my driveway just blew out and I
And
need
that's
to
one
replace
thing.
it, and things like
And that's
that.
one thing, and you know, for the most part, David and I don't have an issue there. But it is on these tree removals, when they come in on Friday afternoon and say, we gotta have this down tomorrow. And it's bright blue sunny skies for the whole weekend and no winds predicted. It's like, where's the emergency here? I mean, you know, that's, you know, let us, that's why I said, let David and I go have a look at this. If we're around, I mean, obviously, if we're not around, then you gotta do what you gotta do, and I get that.
Yeah, I was not around, so.
I get that, but it's still, this process is ripe for abuse.
Oh, I know. That's why I'm trying to switch it
And
up.
that's why I'm saying maybe that doing it through a fee schedule might be the perfect way to handle this, and then it would be,
But in the future, any emergency cert, administrative approval request, or RDA is gonna cost everybody money, so they can choose wisely.
so it's gonna cost money, but if it's still not. That's why I said if an emergency cert costs twice what an RDA is, we'll see what the true, if it's really an emergency. And quite frankly, if it's a legit emergency, it would be, we could waive it.
Well, yeah, we do reserve the right to waive any of
That's
our
what I'm
local
saying. I
fees
mean,
at
you
any
guys know
point
what
in
I'm
time.
saying?
Yeah,
I mean, I think that would filter a lot of it right there. Let's see how much of an emergency it really is. If you're paying double what you could pay to get this done, by going through the normal permit process.
Right. Yeah, it's a crapshoot for sure.
If it's that much an emergency, then they'll pony up the money, and then one of us gets there and looks at it and says, yeah, this is really legit. Don't worry about it.
Right. In Palmer, I really didn't deal with the emergency cert plus tree removal a lot because we had that administrative approval process established. So people would go through that
We've
process.
already discussed the administrative.
Well,
approval,
yeah,
and I think
so-
we were all in favor of it.
Oh, for sure. No, we all were, but like, I didn't really, when I was getting emergency certs, it wasn't for tree removal. But that's, neither here nor there.
we're done with that one, right?
Yeah, oh, yes.
I understand.
One thing that we got left is the tree cutting plan.
A&R and the tree cutting. Well, yeah, I just wrote down wet standard letter. for the A&R.
Yeah, most of those properties have wet on them,
Mm,
and it's all ORW to boot.
mm-hmm.
ORW?
Outstanding resource waters.
Oh,
So at the very least, we're upstream from the
Javish?
the canal diversion, Ludlow Reservoir.
Yeah, so it's all in the Javish watershed as well. And then I don't know exactly how far the canal extends onto this area.
The
but-
canal doesn't show up on there at all.
Well, no, but I don't know how far the ORW mapping for the canal extends, but
All the way to Ninth Pond.
yeah, that's true. It's true. All
Do
right.
we have anything else?
No, just my forest cutting plan comments, which have been addressed.
121 is this butting up against the Constantino, the rec department property?
Yes.
I would think so.
Yes. So my original comments were, the plan indicates that there's harvesting in wetlands, yet there's no information on harvesting in wetlands. The plan indicates that there's a filter strip, yet there's no information on filter strips. Why is the landing 1,500 feet from the site?
Have you, where is the landing?
It's on Hilltop, 141 Hilltop LLC, that's out on Route 9. That's if you pull into Constantino, it may actually be that property or it's right next door. So needless to say, I got a new plan that has information on harvesting in wetlands. It has information on the filter strip. And the other response that I got was that the service forester wants the landing to actually be shown on the stand map. Like, my comment was, why don't you locate the landing on the subject property? Because there's a driveway and there's areas to maybe have the landing. And his response was that most of this material that's harvested is going to be put on like big trucks, and that 141 Hilltop LLC has a greater capacity for this level of like these types of large equipment rather than the actual driveway on the subject property. So most of my comments have been addressed.
I would say if you have any other concerns, I would run that by David.
Yeah, no, I've been reviewing.
I'm sure he is extremely familiar with that property.
I am extremely familiar with this area as well.
Okay.
So Jacob Macco, our service forester, is probably sick of getting my review comments.
Okay.
He's been getting them for a long time. But again, you know, he was like, oh, I'll send you this copy in case yours is different than mine. And I was like, yeah, no, mine's different. So
Okay.
everything has been addressed, and I'll get another revised copy with the landing shown on it when he has it. That's all I got. Yes.
I move that we move.
Second.
We have a motion.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned till next fiscal year.
July 14. All right.
Finally.
Probably have fall.